Hello, and welcome to Required Reading, the podcast that revisits the most impactful books from our childhood. I'm your host, Erin Bowles. I'm a writer, actor, and comedian, and our guest today is Lev Francesca, known online as Lisco2000. Lev is a writer, YouTuber, and content creator who lives in New York City with her little orange cat, Tango, and writes about basketball. She is currently writing a book called Ball is Afterlife about death, grief, and myth-making in professional basketball. She lives by the phrase sunshine and rainbows, but her taste is often anything but. And that is a really good segue into this book. Hello!
Yay, hi!
Our book today is from 2009, a very cool book I had never heard of before, by Chris Wooding, Malice, which is a combination of novel and graphic novel. It is about a kind of Bloody Mary type figure in a comic book that gets you sucked in. There's comics, there's emails and chat messages and newspapers. It's all sorts of stuff. So what is your story with this book?
Yeah. I read this book, I think, when I was like 11 or 12. I know I was in sixth grade when I first found it. And I don't know why it just kind of stuck with me more than like anything that I've ever read. I think the only thing that stayed with me more was the Warrior Cats series, which you could also get into. But really, when I was a kid, it was anything that kind of dealt with the theme of like being an ordinary kid and then getting like whisked away to another world. I think I just appreciated how like dark and gritty this world was. Even though, I mean, reading back on it now when I'm about to be 24. I'm like, I kind of see it differently.
Yeah.
But when I was a kid, I was like, this is like the coolest thing ever. Reading back now, I'm like, okay, the world building here is like a little like, I don't know. Like it just feels like it wanted to be a lot bigger than it was. It kind of, to me, felt like reading back, I was like, okay, this guy thought he was going to get like a Percy Jackson type of deal. He thought he was going to get like, you know, Harry Potter money. Not quite. Like he was setting it up to be that kind of thing, but I just still find it really charming. I still enjoyed rereading it.
Yeah. I was really surprised. I mean, there's this secret comic book that's being passed around this sleepy town in England, and kids are disappearing into it if you perform the special incantation that they have in the book, and you get sucked into this really kind of crazy, dangerous sort of steampunk world. And Wooding has written a lot of like fantasy, but I found very little information about him. But he writes a lot of fantasy, but with this one he seemed to want to mix the fantasy realm and the contemporary world. And I think I was like, I want more of the fantasy. Like, it seems like maybe he had thought out this world a lot bigger, like you were saying. And it's a duology. There's only one other. There's so many threads that get started. And it is a little unsatisfying in how it all works out. But when it's good, it's great. Like, it was genuinely very scary in parts. Did you read the second half?
So I did when I was younger. Couldn't find it online now, but what's really interesting is when I Googled it, my hometown library that I originally got it from is, I think, one of the only places like in the country that has it. So I didn't know how niche it was. I thought it was much more popular. I remember reading the first two, and I think in the back of the second book, there's something where it's like, keep an eye out for the third. Like, he really wanted it to be a series, and I feel so bad that it wasn't. Because, like, honestly, I would be sad. I would be sad for, like, if you look on the wiki for the book, there's something about, like, a movie deal. I'm like, I would be sad for that. I just feel like we didn't get to explore this world enough. And it's a world with a vibe that I really like and that I've continued to really like into adulthood. Yeah, I read the second one like over a decade ago at this point. It's like there's only a few things that I really remember from these books that like stick with me, and there were some things I feel like that I remembered that weren't in the first one, so they must be in the second one.
What were those things that like what made you want to return to this book? Like I gave you the question and you were like, this is the one.
I mean, I think it's the book that stuck with me the most. I think the theme of like kind of going on an adventure to somewhere crazy and nobody believes you when you get back is, I mean, that's heavily tied to like the Odyssey. It's another that was on the list of books that you recommended, but I was like, I have a better idea.
Yeah.
But it's still that theme that I'm obsessed with, where it's like you go on this journey and you come back and just nothing is the same. And I think that really affected me like as a kid. It was also really interesting rereading this book and seeing how much of my writing has been like influenced by it in ways.
Ooh. Okay, say so much more about that. That's my
Yeah,
favorite thing that happens on the show.
Like, I have to think. I really do. But there's like, I don't think it's as much my writing now, but definitely when I was younger, like there are a lot of things that happened in this book that reminded me of things that I put into like my silly like Wattpad fan fictions that I would write back then. And I didn't really realize it until I reread it. And I'm like, oh, well, I have a lot of things to say actually about this specific thing. But the giant like mechanical tiger,
Yes.
that just the idea of somebody's soul getting put in a crystal and then put into like a mechanical thing. Like that is, well, that actually reminded me of Ball is Afterlife because I talk a lot about digital reanimation. And then I'm like, holy shit, there's digital reanimation in the first book I read as a child that really impacted me.
Wow.
And my mind was just blown where I'm like, wait, this is an entire plot surrounding digital reanimation, which is like a huge topic in my writing now.
Wow.
That's kind of, I realized it's really kind of followed me for like a decade and a half at this point,
Yeah.
which is crazy. But that was definitely something that really stuck with me.
I've been watching like a lot of D&D shows
Yeah.
recently. And it feels like this guy has like a thick binder, like a dungeon master of like this whole world and all of the rules. And I would just like to see that because there are these like gigantic mechanical monsters, animals. And there's a group of kids who, you know, all read the thing and got sucked in. And if a kid is killed by one, then like the soul gets pulled out through a crystal. But if you put the crystal back into a monster, then it's like your friend is alive again in the monster. There's just so many aspects of this. Like you were talking about, you get back and no one that's a frequent thing is like in Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and a lot of kids media is just like no one believes me. But in this, if you get out of the comic book, your memory is wiped.
Yeah.
And that is really freaky. And we find out that one of the main characters has already been in this comic.
Yeah.
And that her whole family has been lying to her. And that whole sequence comes through over instant messenger.
That is my favorite thing. I think that is my favorite thing in the entire book is Katie and her cousin over instant message, because I remembered that too. That was one of the other things that stuck with me. I do that a lot, like especially in like my like fan fiction kind of writing, where I'll just like write stuff out in text, and I know it was inspired not just by this book, but that was a big thing at the time. Like the end of the 2000s into like the beginning of the 2010s that all these authors would do. Even like the way they type reminds me so much of how I was texting at age like whatever, like 13, 14, like however old. They never say how old the characters are, but they are teenagers. I would say like around like probably like between like 14 and 16 is where I would put them. But I don't know, this book is like such a hidden gem to me, where it just like means so much to me, but it's so like niche.
You picked this book, and I think I emailed you and I was like, do you have a copy of this? Because it's going to be hard for me to find. And luckily you had the PDF, which was a lifesaver. But I think it's very cool when a book does something new and different, especially for kids, because it allows kids who are creative or want to be a writer one day. It's this idea of like, oh, you can do that. I didn't know that you could play with form in that way. And not only does he do it with prose and comic, but also chat and newspapers and emails. And that sequence when the cousin is like, you were never in San Francisco. It's so weird that it's like, you know, this is happening on like AOL, and yet it really does. It stops you. It makes your blood run cold a little bit.
No, that was like rereading. I was like, oh, I remember this. That was the other thing that I really remembered, was that she'd been there before, and that like the things that she brought back from her quote unquote trip to San Francisco were really like some ancient relic, and like then a ticket, the white ticket that gets you anywhere in the world. It's just so fascinating. Also, I find like the memory wipe aspect to be really interesting too. That's something that a lot of people, I guess like fantasy writers and stuff like that, don't consider, is like the idea of like not remembering the adventure you've been on. And it kind of, to me, it kind of like reminds me of just like the things that like you did when you were a kid, and like all those like little adventures you went on with your friends, and how like you kind of forget them over time, or like it just doesn't feel the same once you're older, once you like quote unquote get out of it. I found that really interesting. And also just like, I don't know, I want to see more of that.
Yeah. Finishing it, I felt dissatisfied
Yeah.
because I wanted more. It
Yeah.
wasn't like
No, same.
necessarily a fault. It just felt like I should only be halfway through this book.
Yeah.
Like I want to
I
know
wanted
more
so much more.
about this train and this conductor,
Yeah.
like the
It was
elements
such
that
a
he
huge world.
exactly.
And they barely touched it.
Yeah, they like, well, we gotta go down to the very, very bottom, which I'm like, are we in like a silo? There are levels to
Yeah.
this? And somehow a guy is accessing the Discovery Channel from
Yeah.
within
Yes.
this.
I'm like, what is going on? Like, it's just one of those things where, like, I feel like for Chris Wooding, this was like a crazy passion project he had where he wrote like these 2 books in a night and then was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. And like, it's, I remember like at the beginning, kind of, or like when Seth gets like sucked into the book and the other kid, Justin, which like, I have to go on a rant about Justin.
Yes,
But that's for a later time.
Okay.
But when Justin's like, oh, there's like this realm and this realm, and you can take the train to here and to there, but then also there's all these things below, and there's all these other cities, and there's the oubliette. Like,
Yes.
like he explains all these things, and then they just don't go to them, and it's kind of like never really explored, and even like the beginning area that like they started at, like the clock tower or whatever, I'm like, there's just all these kids in here just like hiding and starving. And
Yeah.
we just don't go back to that.
And there's even the very beginning is a boy named Luke and his
Yes.
friend, and I don't even remember the girl's name. And
was
Luke's
Heather.
Heather. Luke's disappearance, because he goes into the comic, is one of the kind of inciting incidents of this.
Yeah.
Is Seth and Katie are like, where'd our friend go? We don't really ever. We know Luke is in the comic. We see him in the comic. And that's kind of it, and we just never hear about him again.
But they keep saying throughout the book, like Seth and Katie are like, he's dead. We saw him die, but like we, the reader, didn't see him die.
Yeah.
So I don't remember if that. So I really
Yeah.
like I remember the first book now because I just reread it, but the second one I don't know if they ever find Luke, if he was secretly alive in there. I feel like it was setting it up to be like, oh, they found Luke in some area and then get him back, because I feel like that's what would actually happen, because we never saw him die. They just kind of assumed that.
Yeah.
So that's, where my pattern recognition brain goes. Yeah, I have to reread the second one.
Yeah.
I have to go back to my hometown library and check out the same copy I had when I was 11, which is so cute.
It is. Oh my gosh. The episode I'm recording next week is on Carrie from Stephen King. And my guest, I try for every guest to be like, and if you need a copy of the book, let me know and I'll get it mailed to you, or I'll get you the PDF.
Yeah.
And I told her that, and she's like, no, I have my copy from when I was 13. And that's just, it's so delicious and beautiful.
I love that.
And I was so interested in the time that this came out. 2009, there's a global economic recession.
Yes. Oh my God.
Yeah.
This was so recession core.
Okay, say more
Also,
about
me-
that. Yeah.
Me being like a recession era, like that era kind of kid who like, I was reading this, I think probably in like 2013 or 2014, which was out of that time. But again, I'd grown up through this. I was in the same general like generation and like age range as the characters. This is just so recession core. It's being a kid and wanting more than this, because what this is like your parents are going through like financial stuff and you're a bored kid in a small town and can't get anywhere, and everything just feels so big and so just like scary, and you're running around with your friends, and it's like it's so recession core. But this is also very like for the time period. I think every kid's book was like that. Every kid's book was about, what if I get out of this world? And I don't know if it's the same thing anymore, but it really was like, even like that literally, I don't want to say Harry Potter started it, because it didn't, but it's the same thing where it's like a kid who's like, God, I wish I could get out of this terrible situation I'm in, and then it's like, oh, here you go, here's wizard school. Or like in Percy Jackson, which is the other big one of this genre for me, at least, or at the time, was like, I hate this, like my abusive stepdad fucking sucks, and then it's like, wait, you're actually a demigod, go to camp. It's the same kind of thing, just in like a different way, where it's like, here's this way that you can escape your boring, stupid life where things suck. And I feel like that's very recession core era.
There are two things with that. I think one is absolutely this escapism is I think always a huge thing in kids literature. But what's interesting about this is that in Harry Potter, in Percy Jackson, which I've only read the first book, and it was
Yeah.
a couple years ago for this show.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
There's a moment where you escape and it's better for a while,
Yeah.
and then things get worse. And in here, you escape and it's bad, and you like
Immediately bad.
and like Seth knows that it's bad in here.
Oh, I have issues with him too.
Yeah. Okay, I want to dive into that also, but and we can circle back to this. But at the same time, '08 feels like such a turning point, and I think there's a lot of reasons. Like obviously economic recession, Obama coming in, lots of things. But I realized reading through this with this character of Tall Jake, who's like the bad guy in the comics, as soon as I started reading it, and maybe it's also because of the illustration, I was like, oh, Slenderman. And I had to Google, when does Slenderman start? And it might be the same year that, like, the very first post comes out.
Yeah.
So, obviously, that was not what inspired this. Obviously, this was, like, Bloody Mary and those kind of urban legends. And so I think for me reading it, I was like, oh, this is, like, the end of something. And a real transition into suddenly this sort of social concept is about to look super different. And I think that was like such an interesting moment in time. Yeah.
It's also really cool because I feel like the idea of Slenderman, like, it has to come from somewhere. And again, I don't think this book inspired Slenderman, which would be really funny if it did.
Yeah.
But I think it was just this general, like, tall, foreboding creature.
Very spindly.
And again, and it's all like, oh my God, part of me also while reading this book, I was like, wait, is this book like kind of conservative?
Okay, say
I was like
more about
really
that.
thinking about it for a second. I don't know, just something about the aspect of like, okay, like child abduction, first of all, and like the fear of like no kids stay in the house, like that kind of thing, and how it was really enforced by this world being so bad. And also just kind of like, I don't think I felt this way by the end, but I think like kind of in the way that Seth was this like total like doomery kid who was like, I am the only one who is, I fucking hate him, by the way. But
I wanted to talk about this.
I am the only one who is enlightened, and everyone else is a zombie, and I am the only one in the world of the living. And it was like that whole thing, but then him like finally getting his wishes and leaving, and immediately being like, "No, oh my God, I miss my mommy and daddy," and like that kind of thing. I feel like is kind of a very conservative logic.
Interesting.
If you do imagine the world in any other way, you will be disappointed by it. This is the way. Which I don't really think I felt like that by the end. I think it was more just Seth was that character who had that kind of mindset. But like, again, the world they escaped to, I guess, is bad. But also, I do fear when I was reading this book at age 11, I wanted to go to there.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't about to do the ritual or anything, but like, I wanted to go. I wanted to be in this world. I thought it was pretty cool. I was like, I could figure this out.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, that kid Justin did say like, oh, there are kids who like have a good life here.
Seth is our main character. Seth goes in and immediately meets Justin, and Justin kind of has it figured out. And the thing that, I mean, Justin's backstory is very heavy-handed in the way that it is told.
It's so bad. It's so bad.
He has a really strong accent, and he's like very clearly more working class, and he's like, well, I'm not going to tell you my whole life story, but it was really bad, and my dad hit me, and all the boyfriends.
And my brother went to jail.
My brother went to jail.
Were abusive. And then, wait, my favorite part.
Yes.
Favorite part of this was when he was like, and then I stole a car and I had a clean record, but because my brother did it, they put me in jail for 3 more months. I'm like, that's not how the world works.
Yes.
But okay.
But he introduces this idea that like there can be lives that are so bad that for children that this can seem better. And I was very interested from a thematic perspective that Seth has this very, I like that you said doomer, but he has this mentality like parents live a dead life. Like they go to their 9 to 5 and then they come home and they sit on their TV and just sort of rot. And I don't know that I had that kind of mindset, but I think now I'm thinking about the recession. I think that is like, I remember feeling a little bit of stress because my parents were stressed. Yes, and I didn't really get it or know why, but I think like there is something about it being a very ominous real world. But yeah, there is stranger danger in it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But then there's also like when Katie gets into that car with that like grown man.
Oh my God.
And he's like, I forgot all about this part. When I read this, I was like, that's unsettling.
No, that was...
Which also, I find the emphasis on Katie's appearance all the time really unsettling, where he's always like, she has blonde pigtails. I'm like, we know.
Yeah.
I imagine her as a redhead probably because of
I
Mean
did
Girls.
too.
Probably because of Mean Girls, because the main character in Mean Girls is Katie, who's a redhead. Which also pisses me off about books where it goes in between graphic novel and book or like prose, because Seth I basically imagine the same. Katie was a redhead and Luke was black. And then I
Oh.
got to the part where it showed Luke and he had blonde hair and I was like, okay, great.
Yeah.
That's not what I imagined. I'm retconning that. Katie, I could keep retconning the
Yeah.
entire time. I was like, no, I refuse for her to not be a redhead. But just the part where she was in the car with a grown man and he goes, I am a boring man. I have a wife and kids. And then she like kisses him on the cheek. And I'm
It
like, girl, you have like, but she's the character that I like the most because she
yeah.
actually is like a real person to me. Um,
Yes.
but I'm like, girl, what was that? That unsettled me so bad because the whole thing has been stranger danger. And then it's like, wait, if
Exactly.
there looks like a guy who was a dad, get in the car with him. I'm like, I don't know about that.
Especially there's an element of like, and this is written by a man. Like what's going on? There's one female
Yeah.
character, which you also want to be like, well, it's the aughts. Like, what do you
Yeah.
expect? This is,
Yeah.
at least we have a girl, you know?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
For some reason, I hated the pigtails and beanie. I don't
I
know
did
why,
too.
but I hated it because it made her feel really like younger than she was. But
Yeah.
she felt like like a very capable person and a very
Yeah.
realistic.
She was the smartest one. She was figuring
Yeah.
shit out the entire time.
And she came prepared. She
Yeah.
had a backpack full of shit.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, there's this sequence where she's running from, in the real world, she's running from the people who like make this comic and are
Which
sort of
I
like
need more about that.
exactly.
Yeah.
There's like a queen of cats that we
Yeah, but
never
we
meet.
never-
And
yeah.
there's a scary woman on the subway whose like reflection is a monster
Yeah.
and they're all like the real world kind of presence of the people
Yeah.
within the comic, which is named Malice. But she is so capable. She's a much more interesting character, absolutely. But she's on the run from the
Yeah.
evil publishers. And
Yeah.
she gets in a car with a random man and he's like,
Yeah.
like you said, like, I'm a good person, I'm not gonna hurt you. And
Yeah.
she's like, I need to go to the train station and you can't tell any other adults. And he's like, okay, sounds good. But it's interesting that like we
Yeah.
have a very fantastical world, and the thing
Mm-hmm.
that we're most freaked out about is like that an adult is kind and not a criminal.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Where it's like, like I would like appreciate the author living in a world where he didn't even think twice about that and was like, whatever. I actually really don't like, again, I don't know this guy, but based on the content of the book, I'm like, I don't think he like meant that to be anything.
Yeah.
But it's also like, Katie, girl, like you're smart, you're better than this. And like maybe it
Yes.
shows like how up against the wall she was, but like there are just so many things in this book that just make me go, oh, this is so something 12-year-old Lev would put in a fan fiction. Like this book feels like it was written by a child, like not in a bad way per se, but there's a lot of like decision-making things that I'm just like, I don't think an adult would write this in this way, like the way that Justin tells his backstory,
Oh my
where he's
God.
like, this is my entire life. It's
And
so
I
bad.
love that it's prefaced by like, well, I'm not going to tell you my whole sob story,
But here it is.
but here it is. And they're like, but it's also interesting because they are like
Yeah.
in pitch black darkness, and there is
Yeah. In a
it's
hole. They're literally in a hole.
in a
waiting
hole,
to die.
And at one point they have to like take really slow steps and all this
Mm-hmm.
stuff. But there are like little tiny flashes that are
Yeah.
very interesting about like the fragility of masculinity.
Yes.
And so it's
Uh-huh.
like these two boys can only really have a heart to heart when it is pitch black and like they
Yeah.
can't see each other. And I think they even like hold hands for a minute because they're so
Yeah.
scared. It doesn't feel necessarily like it was written by a kid, but it feels like this was a fun exercise for him
Yeah.
of just like, what if I
Uh-huh.
just go crazy and have fun? But it doesn't
What if I
feel
just write some bullshit?
what if I
Like,
just go
so-
crazy?
Yeah.
But it does feel a little like half baked thematically and like a
Yeah.
lot of like, it does feel like a really good first draft, I guess.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like, that's the thing where it's like, there's just so much potential for this world. And I feel like I even recognized that when I was younger, where I was like, wait, I want more of this. And like, so many of the things that I wrote when I was younger, like focus on this kind of idea of like, here's another dimension that you get whisked away to, and there's all these like trials that you have to go through, and there's like people that you meet, and like it's basically like a classic kind of like dungeon
Yeah.
like quest tale, but it's just in this steampunk world, which again, oh my God, I sound so cringe when I say that, but I was so heavily like into the steampunk vibe
Yeah.
when I was like in middle school. I still kind of am. I still like it. Or even stuff like, I don't know, you know, like the one, have you seen Cowboy Bebop?
No.
Okay, well there's one there's one episode where they go to this like desert planet that's like kind of like, I don't know the exact like word for this, but it's like Arab futurist kind of vibes. So kind of
Oh,
like
okay.
Dune in a way.
Yeah.
But I don't really, the vibe of Dune I don't like as much as like the more like fantastical, whimsical one that's like in Cowboy Bebop. But it's like that vibe I loved as a kid. I still do. It's like kind of these worlds where they mix like sci-fi and fantasy and like history and like real kind of things. And I think that's what drew me so much to Malice and to its aesthetics. Because back when I was like a kid, I really wasn't into super gritty stuff. Like now I think I am
Yeah.
more. I'm more into like horror and stuff like that. But like when I was a kid, this is something that would have so creeped me out, but I loved it.
Yeah.
I ate it up. And like
And there's
I
something
ate up
in that
other
that
things of this
like
genre. Yeah.
corresponds to Seth of like Seth
Yeah.
wants life to be more exciting. He wants
Yeah.
danger, but the most accessible ways that he has in the real world are like there's even a line that's like you have to like schedule a time to go
Yeah.
be in danger to like
Yes.
go.
Yes. This is
And
a
I
thought
think that
that
was
I
yeah.
had this thought even recently. I was thinking about like kind of like surveillance culture, which it wasn't as much of an issue at the time this book was being written. But I think like now if I was writing Seth, it would be like if I want to go explore like growing up, there was this giant cornfield across the street from my house that I didn't really live in a neighborhood. It was like kind of a rural area, but there were, you know, all these like houses on my street with like kids, and we would all go and explore this cornfield. And I'm like, if I wanted to do that today, I would be on so many people's Ring doorbells. Like my mom would be getting texts about it, like, or
The
even if
Facebook
me,
group,
yes,
yeah.
or even if me and like my like 24-year-old body went to go explore a cornfield, they'd be like, hey, like strange woman in cornfield. It's like you really can't just go on an adventure
Yeah.
anymore. And I get what Seth was saying with that. That was the one thing where I was like, you're so annoying when you say it, but
Yeah.
I do agree. Like that's
Yeah.
exactly how I feel and kind of how I felt back then, where it was like I want to actually go on an adventure. I don't want to like go to Sky Zone or play laser tag for 45 minutes. I want to be in the world of laser tag where this is actually real and we are fighting a war. And I think back then it was a lot more like measured of a feeling, but now it's like, oh my God, like if I could go to the laser tag dimension, I would be there so fast. Like this is just like when you're a kid, you can have that fun for 45 minutes, but now it's like it's really the same thing. Like I really do feel that. I feel it so much more as an adult than I did as a kid. And
Interesting.
I think Seth really might just be this author's like feelings.
Yeah.
Not
It's
all of it, but some of it.
It's odd to read a kid, even in 2009, who claims that Christopher Columbus is one of his heroes.
That also pissed me off. I just ignored that. I was like, okay,
Yeah,
yeah, we're gonna ignore that part.
He wants to explore, he wants to find undiscovered land, and it's also like, well, you're a British kid, and maybe
Yeah.
your public education system just you haven't gotten to that
Yeah.
part yet.
Yeah.
About how Christopher Columbus is actually a really bad guy, and how
There was another like really bad one on there too. I forget who it was.
It was
only,
Lewis and
like-
Clark, maybe.
Yeah, the way they phrased Lewis and Clark pissed me off because he was like, they explored the undiscovered lands. I'm like, no, that's really not what they did.
No,
Like, I don't think
those
they
were discovered, buddy.
Yeah. Like in the grand scheme, Lewis and Clark weren't that bad, I don't think, like in comparison to the other people, but like the way he phrased it, I was like, dude, like, no.
Yeah.
You could have phrased that better if you did want to mention them.
Exactly. But I maybe there is a degree of growing up in the aughts, and maybe
Yeah.
even now, where it's like even with the internet, knowledge feels a bit finite. It feels
Yeah.
like kids used to want to grow up and be astronauts and explore the unknown, and it feels like things are pretty known now.
Yeah.
And maybe as a kid that feels like, well, there isn't really a path for me to aspire to.
And I think we see that now. We saw that a lot less in 2009, so I think it's really interesting.
Yeah.
I wish he would have, like, I mean, maybe he didn't know to hone in on that more because that wasn't the issue they were facing at the time.
Yeah.
But, like, I'm, like, of, like, the early Gen Z. I was born in 2002. And, like, I kind of remember this shift of going from, like, you can be anything and you can do anyone and you can save the world and you can fix climate change, you can go to space, you can, like, do all these things, to, like, oh, well, I don't know, like, go to college, get a job. Or it's like, if you don't die in a school shooting, go to college, you know? And it's like, I feel like kids feel that so much more now, like, with the expansion of the internet and how much more things are connected to each other and how you hear about everything all the time.
Yeah.
And it's like, what do kids even want to do with their lives now?
Yeah, this is the first time really thinking about this, but it does freak me out of like,
Yeah.
is the goal of a 14-year-old now closer to Malice, where it's survival,
Yeah.
than dream big? Yeah, and
Yeah.
I also think that '08 and the recession probably had a
Hmm.
lot to do with that,
Yeah.
and college suddenly becoming maybe a little more uncertain for a lot of people.
It's
Damn.
like it's so like heavy when you really look into it because I was not when I was 11, not when I originally read this, I wasn't feeling a lot like Seth, but when I was like probably closer to his age, I totally was. I wasn't like a doomer because I've never really been a doomer, but it was kind of just that feeling of God, I wish there was more and I would do kind of anything to get it. I don't really understand their small town because like you can like walk to the train, but you have to
Yeah.
walk through a field. And it's like that's kind of similar to me where it's like I lived in New Jersey and I was connected to all of these cities and all these things, but I couldn't drive, so
Yeah.
I had to like beg my parents to access them. Or if I wanted to like get to a train station, I would have to like walk miles. Like it
Exactly.
wasn't somewhere that was accessible. And I think I really related to that a lot as a kid too, where it's like these are just kids who live in a neighborhood and have to go through things in order to get places. Because that was really relatable, where it's like I
Yeah.
can't walk anywhere from my house. Like, what am I gonna do until I can drive?
Maybe
And I
that's like
think I
a
felt a lot of that in Seth.
yeah, maybe that's kind of a uniquely and maybe more exacerbated in rural areas, but maybe that's kind
Yeah.
of a suburban problem of like I know that the big city is there
Yeah.
and like
Uh-huh.
technically I can access it. Like you were saying, for me it's like,
Yeah.
well, I can take like a 30-minute bus ride to the metro to then take an hour-long metro ride into the city and then I'm there, but there are all these hurdles that make it feel
Yeah.
really impossible. Maybe that's some of the frustration of like I know
Yeah.
people are out there living lives.
Yes, yes. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I felt. I just, when you're a kid, it feels so much bigger where it's like you feel like you're in a bubble. Like my bubble was if the school bus didn't come to take me to school and my parents didn't want to drive me anywhere, my bubble was my house and the cornfield across the street and the few friends that I had that were in walking distance.
Yeah.
And that was it. And I couldn't even like go to like, do you guys have Quick Check? It's like
No.
It's like a 7-Eleven kind of
Yeah.
situation. But there was one of those that was within like walking distance of my house, but you had to cross like what was like a big road, not like a highway, but a big road
But
to get
yeah,
there. So
yeah.
we were never allowed to go. And I think we broke the rules like one time with like this one specific friend, and my mom was like so mad at us. But it was like I couldn't even go there. I couldn't even go to Quick Check.
Exactly.
It was like that was a trek. That would have been like a whole day of an expedition.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really do relate to that feeling of Seth just being like there has to be something more than this. This can't be it. But the thing is, I don't know if me as a kid, I don't know if I would have reacted the same way where it was like I immediately was like I want my mommy and daddy right now.
Yeah.
I think that was kind of a really funny thing that the author did. I think it's a fun way to build a character, but also I just Seth was just such an edgelord. And I really hated him. I loved him. I loved him because I saw so much of my younger self in him, but I hated him. He was a chud. Like I understand like the emotions he had, I understood, but the ways he expressed them, I was like, dude, get out of here. Like you were that was the first performative male, I think, was Seth. He was like, I have posters of Christopher Columbus on my wall. Like that's
That was
insane. That's so
insane.
insane. There's so many things in this book that I'm like, what the
What?
like, okay, all right, cool.
Yeah. There's a weirdness. I mean, obviously, like, it's never stated explicitly, but obviously Seth and Katie have crushes on each other.
Yeah.
And it's
Uh-huh.
it's like pretty cute, you know? It's
Yeah.
I think it works pretty well. But I'm definitely now being like, because Katie is an American who recently, last handful of years, moved to London and then this sort of way out there
Yeah.
area. And I'm also like, I wonder how much of Seth is just like she's different. She is
Yeah.
from America. She's
Yeah.
you know
Uh-huh.
even in that way vaguely exotic.
Yeah.
But there's an interesting line where he gets into the comic and he's like realizes he's playing to an audience now.
Yeah, uh-huh.
And I thought that was like, again, it's like I doubt that was intentional, but like, oh, there's so much juiciness there thematically. Yeah.
Uh-huh. I think that even is something that you can kind of I mean, I've been like reading and like kind of seeing a lot of TikToks, which is so ironic, about the fact that I feel like we're kind of all performing all the time now.
Oh, yeah.
And just like the fact that everybody in our age group wanted to be a YouTuber when they were younger, which I guess I now am. I'm not like successful. I'm not like the moving to LA content house kind of YouTuber. But like everybody wanted to be a YouTuber. Everybody wanted to be performing. It was like kind of like a way out of that boredom where it's like once you unlock like, oh, I'm doing stuff for fun for my job, now I can go like play all day.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really similar thing to the whole Seth thing. And I don't think I mean, in 2009, it wasn't at the point that it was when I was reading this book, but it was like kind of the thing of him like kind of enjoying having an audience
Yeah.
and being like, wait, this kind of unlocks something for me. I don't know. Seth is just I hate him so bad, but he's such an interesting character because everybody wants to be like Katie, but I think there is a little bit of Seth in all of us,
Yeah.
unfortunately. And
What's
also definitely
interesting,
for the
yeah.
teenagers reading this, like most of them are Seth.
Oh yeah. What's interesting is there's only 5 years. I'm 5 years older than you, but nobody wanted to be a YouTuber when I was
Yeah.
growing up. I mean, iCarly came on, and that was
Yeah, that was
big.
big.
That
Yeah.
was big. I wanted to be kind of like that, but it was still. But now I'm thinking, like, what did kids even want to be? In my high
Yeah.
school graduating class, and I think I wanted to be a screenwriter, and I was like very crystal clear in that. But I was an outlier. Everyone was sort of like, I guess I'll be a doctor. Like, I
Yeah.
guess I'll be a lawyer. And like going into college really not knowing. That's really interesting. And I wonder how much, like, I graduated in 2015, and I do wonder how much of that is like now sort of
Yeah.
recession and sort of rebuilding from that. Very
Yeah. I mean,
interesting.
I graduated in 2020 and it was a very similar kind
Well,
of thing.
yeah.
Where I was one of those people who was like, I was dead set on being like a sports journalist, like an NBA, like sideline reporter kind of person, which
Hell yeah.
it's changed. It's changed a lot. I no longer really want to do that. And I don't really see a world where I would want to do that at all, actually. But it was just so much of like that, like, well, I guess this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
Like, even for me, it was like, all right, I guess I'll go to school for this. And I don't know, maybe that's just like a thing that a lot of teenagers feel, but it also just kind of I don't know. It like that YouTube wave was more, I think, when I was like in middle school, where it was
Yeah.
like everyone wanted to be a YouTuber. We all wanted to be Tyler Oakley. We all wanted to be Jenna Marbles. Like we were all gonna have like these big nice houses and like just do stuff for fun and make money. And it's like that was kind of a window into something that could be different, and then it kind of
Yeah.
closed, in a way. And then there was like that whole like TikTok wave where that happened with people, and that's kind of over now. And it's like I don't know. I wonder what things do look like in those in-between periods where there are things that kids want to grow up to be.
Yeah.
Because I do feel like it's kind of. I'll ask my sister's graduating from high school this year. I'll ask
Yeah.
her what things
Yeah.
are looking like in her graduating class.
What do kids even want to be? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know. But
Yeah.
this whole book is like so fascinating because there's all these things that I don't think the author realized he was doing
Yeah.
thematically, but he did them.
I'm thinking a lot about. I'm doing this YouTube series of reading all of the Bronte sisters novels this year.
Yeah.
And there's a lot around, there's like so much mythos around those sisters, and there's a lot of ideas. I'm encountering a lot of ideas about like intentionality in art and in writing. And my thing is like always, always, always go into it thinking that the author did everything 100% on purpose. And I think with this book, I really can't do that. I really cannot say that. And it's interesting to like
he was
have
just-
those two
he was-
things at the same time.
He was throwing spaghetti at the wall, and it worked in most cases, and some it didn't.
Yeah.
Most of the time, things made sense. I think what I'm really stuck on, and that I've been stuck on this entire time, is the Tatiana situation.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Tatiana
Where-
is the
Well,
dead girl who's the crystal who becomes the saber tooth
so
mech tiger.
Seth gets into Malice, and he's like on the train, or just gets off the train, and he's like fighting with these creatures, these evil robot creatures, and they kill Tatiana, but they kill her by like, and it's like a thing that ages you really fast when it's like touching you. It's like the beach that makes you old, but it's like if these things bite you and they sink their fangs into you, it makes you old really fast. And there also is this line in there that's like, it turns you old till when you're 80. Would you want me to pull it off you, or would you want it to just kill you in that case? Which I think that's fascinating, kind of the way that they look at
Yeah.
age in this book.
Exactly. I'm
but,
just now
yeah.
clocking into that of like,
Yeah.
and it takes all your time
Takes
away.
your youth and your time, and even just the idea of the clock tower, and then there's just so much. But anyway, back to Tatiana. She dies. We never even get to meet her. She doesn't have like a single line. Her soul is put into this crystal, and then she has this like boyfriend that they go and give the crystal to, but he goes like crazy with like grief, but also the power of this crystal. And like they go up to this area called like the menagerie, where there's all it's like a carousel, it's like a carnival. That makes no sense to me too, where I'm like, how are you below that in the clock tower? Where, like, I just don't understand, like, the space. I wish we had like a map or something.
Yes.
I wish there was just more illustration, because this makes no sense. But they go up, and the boyfriend, puts Tatiana's soul, her crystal, into this giant mechanical tiger that just immediately tries to kill them. Like, it's not Tatiana in there. I think they kind of just say, like, it's really not the person that's in there anymore. It's just the life force that's being used to, like, power this thing. But he was like, I want to bring her back, which that's the digital reanimation thing.
Yeah.
But the issue that I think I have with this is just how all of that happens, and then nobody ever really acknowledges Tatiana the girl ever again. It's just Tatiana the tiger. I'm like, no, that's a girl.
Yeah.
There's a real living human girl that was put into this machine. And it's like, they're like, well, she's a cat. Cats are gonna do cat things. I'm like, no, that's a girl in a mech suit. Like,
yeah.
Why,
and the tiger is
why
like,
did we forget?
Kind of a friend and is like nuzzling. But yeah, it's
he tried to kill them at first, and I'm like, what happened?
And there's like
to
no
the
explanation. Yeah, there's no kind of time spent on it. It is just like,
it's
now
really
we have
unsettling.
an animal friend.
They don't think about it in any way. Even Justin and Seth, who were there, they couldn't save Tatiana the girl. They were there for this whole thing, but they just kind of like don't. Like, Katie, I understand her not getting it or not knowing it, because she wasn't there when this happened, and she was just like, oh, cool, tiger, that seems friendly, I like cats, this is my friend now. But the other two, like, how aren't they like, oh, wait, there's the soul of this dead girl in there? Like, she's never mentioned as a person ever again, and that's so weird to me.
There's a lot more ink spilled about the boyfriend and how hard it is for him, certainly. Which, like, at first makes sense, because we don't interact with her, but we see this guy, we can talk to him. It is sort of like Scooby-Doo now, instead of a real person. Who died.
Yes. It's like there just isn't enough, like, brain power spent on that, I don't think. And I feel like they could have done without that plot line and then just given them an animal friend in this world, instead of going through all these hoops to create an animal friend. And that, again, really ties back to my theory of Chris Wooding wrote this in one night. And he was like, this is fire.
Exactly.
Because on the surface, that's really cool, but, like, they could have kept her as this, like, animal friend, but we needed to have an arc of Tatiana the person. We needed to see, oh, did she, like, accept being put into this mech suit? Does she like that she has a second lease on life, even if it's as a tiger? Like, does she like being a tiger? Is that why she's like, hell yeah, this is great? It's just so, especially because we already had that thing where Justin was saying, like, once their soul is put into the evil robot, it's not them anymore. It's just their life force being used to power the evil robot. So I'm like, how did we get here then?
Yeah.
I have so many issues with this book, but, like, I fear I love it.
Every chapter is chapter one.
Yes.
Almost always. I still don't understand it.
I don't understand that at all.
I think only ever get to, like, chapter 4, and then it restarts. You'll have, like, 3 chapter ones in a row. There's a moment where there's, like, a torn out newspaper page that ends up being very important, about a kid who goes missing and then comes back. They say psychologist David Wayne says this and this, and I'm like, David Wayne is a real man who's a comedian who directed and wrote Wet Hot American Summer, one of my favorite movies ever. So I'm like, what is this? Like, I've had moments where I wrote a little short in college, and I was like, this guy is named Paul Downs, and it just came to me, and then I went along my business, and then, like, 2 years later, I was like, oh, I was watching Broad City at the time, and there's an actor and writer in Broad City whose name is Paul W. Downs, and that's how it happened. So, like, and there's the artist who does the comics is named Grendel, and I think Grendel is,
well,
like...
the cat is Anderson, Hans Christian Andersen. There is a fairy tale folklore aspect to this that isn't just even, like, the Queen of Cats, like the Queen kind of thing in there. It just isn't explored at all. It's like there's just so much that's here, and it's like, I feel like maybe in order to make this story better, you'd have to tone it down a little bit.
You have to rein it in. And be like,
rein it in just a little bit. Like, Chris Wooding, you would have gotten that 5 books and a movie deal if you just
a little more focused.
Reeled it in a little bit more and just, like, focused on maybe, like, 1 or 2 plot lines at a time.
Yeah.
There's just so much that's happening. There's just too much.
Yeah. His website has not been updated in, like, a decade.
Is he alive? Like, where is he?
I really don't know, but at the time...
I would love to talk to this man.
I think the website seems pretty old, but he does have like a little blog section of it. And the most recent entry is like January 2020, and he's like, "Welcome 2020. I bet it's gonna be a cool, fun year. So many opportunities." But he, at some point before that, was like, well, I'm writing a lot less because, like, for myself, so I'm not going to be publishing as many books because I'm writing for video games right now. And I'm like, Malice.
That's where he needs to be. That's where he's in the video game world.
He's actually in the right place. Yeah.
Killer, like, open world, like, steampunk. Like, make Malice into a game.
Exactly.
I might just email him and be like, yo, I am
begging for Malice to be a video game.
This book impacted me so much. I would spend hours playing that. I think that would do better now than it would have done like when this book was written. I think we need the story more now than we did in 2009.
Yeah, especially just with the way that tech has changed so much. I mean, there's a moment really early on where they're like, Luke didn't even take his phone and he's glued to that thing. And I was like, oh, you don't even know what that phrase is going to mean in 10 years. Like, it's so radically different. You know, 2009 was 1 year after the iPhone, and there's no way these kids in England had the iPhones. There's no way.
I need more about Luke.
Yes!
What the hell happened to that guy? He was like the main inciting point, and they were just like, oh, whatever. Like, Seth isn't even worried about finding Luke anymore. He's like, how do we defeat tall Jake? I'm like, your friend is in here. Like, your best friend is here somewhere.
And there's an element of like, well, we all feel bad, and like, we have to make sure tall Jake stops getting kids like Luke. But he really is like, I don't even know the word for it, but it is kind of like an excuse to which also probably happens in real life. There's even an interesting point of like, you know, Luke goes missing, Seth goes missing, and Seth ends up coming back to the real world at the end of the book, and then Katie goes missing and Seth comes back. So they're like, all your friends are disappearing, but you came back, so you must have killed them. And all of this stuff, and it's like, blow that up. I'd like to see more of that. There's something really interesting there.
Oh, it kind of blew over because they couldn't find evidence. But I'm like, if you're in a small town where this is all happening, like, this should be, like, front page of the newspaper.
Yeah. He's like...
Even, like, maybe in, like, the London, like, regional... Like, because it takes place, like, outside of London, like... I think if that was happening in my small town that I grew up in that's outside of New York, it would be making New York papers. If it's like, these kids in a New Jersey town keep going missing. It's like, that should be a bigger deal than it seems to be in this universe.
Yeah, and there's I miss it. The it passing over is like, the prime minister had an affair, and it just like the news cycle moved on.
What can you do? Yeah. There's just so many things, and I'm like, just if he just reeled it in a little bit and took it slow, or even made this whole thing into a 6 graphic novel series between the 2 books, that would have been... I would be there. I would be sad. I am sad. I've been applying to jobs at like publishing companies lately, and I'm like, if I get one of these jobs and I can contact Chris Wooding, I'm like, I have an idea.
Exactly.
It's a very selfish idea, but I'm like, I want more of this world, and I'm sad that we didn't get to explore it more.
Exactly. That, like, I used to work in development and entertainment for a teeny tiny production company. Yeah. But it would be so cool to be like, boss, I got this thing and I think it's really good. And what if your boss is like, wow, this thing that you loved as a kid is really good, and you're gonna finally, like, I'm editing another episode of this show where there's a book that came out in the 50s and it gets re-released in like the 70s or 80s, and in the introduction is a writer who read this book when she was a kid and is now a very successful children's author and gets to write the introduction to this book that she loved. And there's something so cool about that like I'm jealous of that moment for that woman. Yeah.
I just see this becoming, and it's like, it's also so sad that he planned it to be a trilogy and it got cut off at 2. I want so much more of this world. And from what I do remember, the second book it takes place mostly in Malice.
Good.
Like, in the comic. From, again, what I remember from being like 11 or 12. It's just so good. There's just so much. And it's like, I wish it was less, but I also wish there was more. I wish he would have just like chilled out a little bit and maybe not shoved everything into this book. I also want to read his other stuff.
Yeah, he has a lot of stuff. He's got something like 23 novels. And the most recent one came out in 2023.
Oh, okay, so he's still at it.
Yes,
somewhere.
I totally forgot that. And he's written like adult fantasy series. He wrote something like, I really don't know what kind of format it is. Like Wikipedia said it was like anime inspired, but it seems like maybe a manga that's like 20 issues or something.
Oh, wow.
Like this guy's output is crazy. And he even says like he wrote his first novel at 16 just because he was very bored. So like, honestly, write like your own novel within the world of Malice and send it to him and just be like, big fan, man, this is what I spent, you know.
Here you go. Yeah.
I got bored too, and you know, love the work, have some notes. Yeah. Here you go.
I feel like I could see myself doing that.
Exactly.
Or even like I keep getting ideas for like the video game where it's like, what if like one of your like when one of your like party members dies, you could take their crystal and put it in like a mech suit.
Yes. Exactly.
Crazy. I'm in. Yeah. I'm sold. Sold immediately.
Yeah, this would be a great world for Dungeons and Dragons and like a tabletop world. So many possibilities.
It's also just like, Christopher, if you're, I bet he's gonna see this, actually. All things considered, like, he's gonna see this. We're gonna send it to him somehow. Like, he's gonna get this. Like, we are so here for this. Like, I literally remember being, like, 11 and being like, I need more.
Yeah.
And there wasn't any more. And I was like, and I think so much like, and so much of what I was writing at the time is so clearly inspired by it. Like, I had a whole thing about, it was like a Daft Punk fan fiction, which is really funny in itself. But it was this girl.
The kids don't understand these days.
No, the kids don't get it. I was there. I was seated. It was 2013. And there's this girl who's just a very ordinary, average teenage girl, and she goes to a Daft Punk concert. And when she leaves, she finds that the entire place that she went to for this concert, which was like at some kind of like warehousey thing in like the city, it's everything actually is abandoned, and she ended up in some other kind of dimension than when she first got there. And it's her and then the two robots from Daft Punk who are like secretly interdimensional, like, because they're robots. It's like, you know, it's easy to play with that. And there's this whole thing where it's like they're in this like abandoned city, and there's all these different like areas and kind of like levels and trials you have to go to. And I'm trying to remember. I don't like have this anymore, but there's these like robot like creatures that you have to. I think there is like there's something with a crystal and a soul. I'm like, wait, that was completely inspired. I just didn't realize it until rereading this now. And it's like there's a cat that's like a robot that helps them, and then there was a sequel to it that I wrote where there was actually like a secret like faction of like humans who ended up in this world, and like it was being taken over by robots, but like this makes no sense because why were there robots fighting against the robots? And the human faction was called the Anti-Robot Association.
Wow.
Because I'm really bad at naming things, and I always have been. It made no sense, but it's so clearly inspired by this world where it's like there's these groups that are trying to like restore order or take away order or like make something some kind of way, and there's this one ordinary girl at the center of all of it, and I love that.
That is like I wrote a little TV show just in my own bedroom in 9th grade, and I had a friend who was writing novels, and I just hope kids are still doing that.
I hope
kids
so.
I hope there's you know a 10th grader out there with like 3 completed novels on her iPad or something. It's my favorite thing
in the world. It's my favorite thing, and I especially love going back to read it now that I have like almost a fully developed brain. I still have like a year left to go, but my brain's mostly developed at this point, and it's just like so fun to like look back and see like, oh, this is what inspired this. This is kind of where I think I got that thing from. Like, oh, this reminds me a lot of this other thing that I was interested in at the time, because you don't realize you're doing it when something inspires you. This might be like an autism thing, actually. I keep realizing things that I never understood because I took it too literally. I always thought that inspiration was like you consciously are like, oh, I like this thing. Okay, and now I'm writing this thing, and this thing is inspiring me. But it's like, not, it's so subconscious.
Yeah, because sometimes it can be that. Sometimes it can be, I learned about this cool thing, and now I want to do it more. And sometimes it is the Paul Downsification of...
Yes, that's a good... We need a word for that. Where, like... I bet there is. Where, like, something just, like, kind of osmosises itself into whatever you're working on.
That's what Freud was doing, maybe.
Maybe. We'll never know.
We don't want to give him too much airtime.
No, he was osmosising. But I love like when kids write like crazy, like fantastical stories. It's like my favorite thing in the world, especially when it's a fan fiction and it's just like some crazy adventure is going on, like but One Direction is there.
Yeah.
It's like my favorite genre.
Kids just don't understand that a decade ago. This is like a deep buried middle school memory that came to me like 2 nights ago.
Yeah.
From the depths. Did you ever hear about the Harry Potter fan fiction My Immortal?
Yes, and I read it. I read it when I was like 12.
I never read all of it, but like it was a recurring thing during middle school sleepovers that people would be like, let's pull up a chapter of My Immortal and read it to you. So I was on...
We did that too. That was literally what we did. It was so fun.
I was on JSTOR the other day, and I was like, if I type in Ebony Darkness Dementia Ravenway, will something come up? And even now, in this individual moment, I'm like, dementia is in that name? What?
That's crazy. Yeah.
Wait.
No, it's like...
that needs to be an episode of the podcast.
Wait, yes. Oh my god, I would guest star. I would totally do it. I just love kids writing fantastical stories that make no sense. Where it's like you're in Harry Potter, but like not really, because it's like totally not Harry Potter, but like and like...
they're going to concerts.
Yes, and it's so good. It's so good. There was like... I don't know if kids are still doing this, but me and my best friend did look up Benson Boone fanfiction on Wattpad.
No.
Yeah.
Dang. I was on AO3 the other day to see if there's a ship from The Count of Monte Cristo. Because I just read that.
I bet there is.
For another... well, I just read that. That was the most recent episode I recorded. And there's a that book is so long. And there's a chapter way near the end where 2 women are like, hey, do you want to run away together? And I'm like, that's gay.
That's gay.
And I need to know if anyone else has clocked this and written something. There's one out there on AO3. I should look on Wattpad. Yeah.
Yeah, Wattpad's where like the worst stuff is gonna be. That's where I was writing my crazy shit when I was 12. I think it kind of varies. I don't know if kids are really still on Wattpad, because my whole issue with Wattpad, besides the everything, is that they changed to like kind of like a paid model where there's like a lot of ads and like you could pay for premium and stuff, so people have kind of shifted away from it. When I was using it, that was not the case.
Yeah.
So I think if there were ads between every chapter of my fanfiction that I was reading, I would not use that site. So that's kind of how I tell people how I got from Wattpad to AO3. I think it was just because by the time I started wanting to do fanfiction again, Wattpad was like a paid thing. But it is really interesting.
Yeah. Fan fiction is an incredible thing.
Truly so.
Someone should write a piece of academia about that. But I've had you here for about an hour, and I know it's getting to be dinner time where you are. Yes. So is there anything that you know you wanted to talk about that we have not covered? I'm looking at my notes. You wanted to talk about Justin. I feel like we touched on that.
I think we touched on my issues with him. That his backstory was just so heavy-handed and also just like, not to say not realistic, but it's like I just don't think that anybody's life is that bad. In that way, where every single member of their family... I went to jail
because my brother was bad.
My brother had a criminal record. I'm like, that's not how that works. That's sue somebody. You didn't have to go to Malice. You had to go to court. Yeah. Like, that's insane. That's not allowed.
I guess then to final question... would you consider this required reading?
Oh, man.
And required can be like, required to be your best friend. Anything you want it to be.
I think in order to the best of your ability, understand the Lev Francesca cinematic universe, absolutely yes. But if you are somebody who really values things being written well and making sense and not making your head spin with how complex it is, but also how shallow it is at the same time, no. But no. But like, if it wouldn't frustrate you to read this book, then yes, because I dearly love it and it has influenced a lot of my writing.
To me, no, it's not required, but fun. If you're looking for something weird and wacky and out there, I think it's fun. It's a fun way to have a conversation. And I think the thing that I am being spurred on to do by the conversation and by reading it is just like, get your ass in front of a keyboard and do some crazy shit. Just do it, you know?
Have ideas, put them to paper, and never do a second draft. because that's what I was doing when I was writing things, and that's I think what Chris Wooding was doing. Really, it was just writing things and being like, yeah, and
It
be
might
really
just be
confident in
true.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just create a world and be really confident in that world, and believe that this world will get 6 books and a movie.
Yeah.
And hopefully one day there will be 2 people on a podcast talking about how it really, with some tweaks, it really should have gotten 6 books in a movie.
Yeah. Is there anything that you would like to plug now that we are here at the end?
I am Lisco_2000. On TikTok, I am just Lisco2000, no underscore. Nobody stole it from me when I made my TikTok. Stay tuned for Ball is Afterlife. That's a thing that I'm working on. And if you want to be a part of Ball is Afterlife, I am constantly putting out calls for interviews and stuff like that. It's still in the very early stages. Haven't pitched it to literary agents yet, but if you are interested in reading Malice and you don't want to go through the work of finding the PDF that I have, my email is linked with my like portfolio because I love it, and it saved this episode because I didn't want to have to spend money on this book.
Yeah. Yeah. Now that we're at the end, I've started doing something new, which is to read the final line or paragraph or page of the book. So the final page of this book, it's 4 little text bubbles from Tall Jake himself. I love when Tall Jake comes, it's not often, comes in and does direct address. In this one, he starts with Dear Reader, which to me, because I just read it last month, immediately makes me think of Jane Eyre.
Yeah.
the sick-ass line of, Reader, I married him in Jane Eyre. But from Tall Jake himself. Still here, dear reader? Still enjoying your little tour of my domain? I'm so very glad. After all, Malice would be nothing without you. Seth has escaped me, it seems, but I still have his friends. Would you have fared better in his place? Are you brave enough to find out? Perhaps you will be the star of the next issue. You only have to ask. I'll be back soon, dear reader, and so will you. Delightful.
Hear me out. Tall Jake. He's my hear me out.
Not for me. That man is very scary, but I do like the outfit. I do like the outfit.
Yeah, there's something about him. It's something charming about it.
I like how impossible it is to see his face with that little hat and that incredible collar.
Yeah.
The end.